Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you to the April 2023 Lancaster County Planning Commission meeting. Thank you guys that are in attendance. I know it's a pretty day, and as you can see, we're just barely at a quorum, but anyway. Did everyone receive their packets in time to review the minutes from last month's meeting?
Yes.
Any changes or updates?
No.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes from the March meeting as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Moving right ahead, Mr. Gill, we have our first public hearing on the proposed zoning ordinance, Article 29, short-term rental regulations.
Mr. Chairman, as you know, the Board of Supervisors directed the Planning Commission last year, I can't remember what month it was, to look at regulating short-term rentals in our zoning ordinance. Currently, all we have is a short-term rental registry ordinance and a transient occupancy tax ordinance. And due to some complaints that have come into the office over the past year, the board asked the Planning Commission to look at possibly crafting an ordinance to go in our zoning ordinance to help with enforcement, to help with regulation of short-term rentals, not only to address the safety and enjoyment of the transient visitors, but also protect the neighborhoods in which the short-term rentals were located. Several months ago, you looked at many different ordinances from many different jurisdictions. We used the ordinances from the towns of Irvington and Urbana, the cities of Williamsburg and Virginia Beach, and the counties of Goochland and Louisa to craft the draft ordinance that is in front of you tonight. You held a public hearing at your January meeting, and at that time, you decided that it needed a little bit more work. So over the past couple of months, you have reviewed and revised it further. And at last month's meeting, you decided to forward this latest draft to another public hearing. So that's the purpose of tonight. Advertising has been conducted as required by law. I did receive 2 written comments, which I provided at your desks from a couple of different folks in regard to tonight's public hearing. And some of those may be in attendance here tonight as well. So I will point out, there was some question last month about, on page 2, the 29.3-1 last sentence where it says, all short-term rental operators shall provide verification that the short-term rental use of their property is not prohibited by any deed restriction or any covenant of any homeowners association, HOA, if applicable. There was some discussion on whether, since the county does not regulate private covenants, whether or not that sentence should be there. We decided to leave it and have the county attorney chime in, and I've talked to Jim this week, and in true attorney form, he told me that you could argue both sides of this, but he said to be on the safe side, he thought the best thing to do would be to take this out of the ordinance, but put it in the special exception application. So with Jim's 40-plus years of county attorney experience, I would have to go with what he suggests.
You guys have any questions for Mr. Gill?
Mr. Gill, could you explain the new, I'm gonna call it law, whatever, that these short-term rentals can be reported now, so we know not to put it on?
The previously, when these platforms paid their transient occupancy tax, we would just get, the Commissioner of Revenue would get one check from, say, VRBO for just one amount of money and would not delineate where the amounts came from. The General Assembly tackled that issue. They changed state law to require that these hosting platforms provide detailed information to the jurisdictions. Currently, there is one that is providing that detailed information to us. The bigger players, I think VRBO and Airbnb, are contesting that law, and the Attorney General's office is involved. And I know that the Commissioner of Revenues Association, including our own Commissioner of Revenue has drafted a letter and sent to those platforms requesting the information. But unless something has changed recently, the bigger players are still not providing that detailed information.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. Is this you said law, is this something that's coming into, or supposed to come into, and it's been voted on, has not been voted on?
It was law as of October 1st of 2022.
Okay, and refusing to do it, nothing's being done. Okay, that's part of the course. So we're still getting blocked.
Yeah, we're still getting just a aggregate amount.
Just to try to add on to that, Mr. Sorensen, so a letter had to be drafted from the county stage, so there's a process that they're, in all essence, it's a game they're playing. The county has done that, Lancaster County has done that, and we're just waiting to hear back. So they're making it like steps, and we're just following the steps at this point, but if we comply with what they're asking, if it had to go to the legality side, I mean, at least we're following our steps to cover the county. That's Chair, Mr. Chair, that's the names that signed up.
Is anyone requesting to speak? I've only got 3 names in here, obviously that's not, here, do you want to pass this out?
Sure.
That wouldn't add up. Hey, Glenn, do we have anyone online?
We have 2 people online.
Thank you very much. Pardon? What was that?
Nobody raised their hand yet. We got 2 people online.
So we just give them an opportunity, if they want to, just let them know they've got to raise their hand? I'm guessing they can hear us, okay. All right, well, let's start the public hearing portion of this meeting. We've got 5 names signed up. We'll go right as they were given to us. And when you come up, after I call your name, if you come up, if you would please state your district, that'd be very helpful for our notes. So we'll start with Cindy Allen, please.
District 3. I'm going to start with probably the most important part tonight, in case I run short on time. I just want to say thank you for your efforts to craft some ordinances that will address some of the issues related to short-term rental. I want to start with a thought that an LLC is defined by the IRS as a business structure allowed by state statute. Therefore, any short-term rental owned by an LLC is a business, inarguably a business, and should not be in an area zoned as residential. In your draft ordinance under 29-2 definitions, short-term rental unhosted, the language in the draft says the maximum number of rented nights shall not exceed 240 per calendar year. This is still a full 2/3 of the year, and thus it's not really that much of a compromise. Half of the year as the maximum would still be painful if there are issues, but it would constitute more of a compromise, in my opinion. In the proposed Article 29-3-5, a commercial general liability insurance policy is required for a minimum limit of $500,000. I believe the maximum should be $1 million. Our neighbors in Urbana require insurance for STRs at a minimum of $1 million. Justin Ford, noted STR safety expert, estimates that every 44 seconds, someone is injured in an STR. I mean, just think about that for a moment. And along those same lines, the top cause of injuries to transient renters is fire. Fire pits do not belong in a short-term rental within a neighborhood. In our neighborhood, the homes are 20 feet apart, and we have witnessed several unattended fires and fire pits when transient renters have been in the home of an STR. As noted, we are currently unable to change our HOA bylaws and covenants, so we look to the county for common sense basic safety measures. I might point out that in neighborhoods that have the same issue with covenants, the full-time neighbors will never be able to change their covenants because the neighborhoods have become overrun with STRs, often owned by LLCs. So they would be unable to pass reasonable STR restriction. It's no secret that the proliferation of STRs has adversely affected the already small inventory of affordable rental property in the county for those who cannot afford to own a home. This has been reported in the national news, and we know from experience that our rural community feels these effects more acutely than most localities. If Lancaster hopes to attract younger residents, as we say we do, young people will be unable to afford to own or rent a home or raise a family here. I've heard it said that the county seems to be hearing complaints coming from just a handful of rental properties. I believe that impression is inaccurate, although we have been kind of vocal in our neighborhood. Even if that were true, why not take a more proactive approach and prevent other citizens from having to endure these issues? Is it not the right of Lancaster County citizens to enjoy the property they have purchased for their own use? Finally, if you don't believe what I'm saying, I would hope that you would listen to what the Lancaster County Businessman of the Year, David Dew, said in a previous meeting. He had made some very good points about STRs. He came in by Zoom. And I want to thank you again for allowing me to voice my concerns and for your efforts to craft this ordinance. I ask that you take a harder look at the proposed ordinance and incorporate some more reasonable regulations to address the issues of safety and the nuisances caused by short-term rentals, excuse me, in residential neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. And we've got a Jeff Allen, is number 2, please.
Jeff Allen, District 3. After 48 years of marriage to Mrs. Allen, I've learned to listen, and normally I agree. I have just a housekeeping thing under, so I would reiterate certainly what she has said, and I think it's well placed. 29-7-2 says, on more than 3 occasions, in prior sessions, and I looked in the ordinances and I couldn't find the applicable language, but you may know, Don, we were talking about 3 strikes and then you would have your permit yanked. When you say more than 3 occasions, in my dumb math, lawyer math, that's 4, not 3. So we may want to look at that. We spent the week literally doing what we've always wanted to do since college exams, and we went through Garden Week. We went to Williamsburg and learned that it's really a fabulous place. A lot of retirees like this area, a lot of things to do, fabulous gardens, people fully engaged, and a vibrant economic community after COVID, okay? So I thought, you know, there are a lot of parallels to Lancaster. We have a lot of that here. We have a very vibrant populace, I think, a good mixture of folks, a lot of opportunities outside, lots of things to do. And I think we need to be real careful with this ordinance. I applaud what you've done so far. But one of the things that I learned in 32 years of military experience is it's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube once it's out. So my suggestion would be, Irvington has put a limit on the number of short-term rentals at 35. And over the last 8, 10, almost 12 months now, they still haven't gotten to their limit. And they did grandfather in all the existing STRs, and I have something to say about that too. But my suggestion to you is, why don't we pick a number? Make it 35, if you will. And I'll tell you why I'm picking 35, okay? You can always up the number, okay? But you guys have spent a lot of time working on this and a lot of hours. And I would guess that, and I like what you've done, that if it's a non-hosted STR, they have to come in here for a special exception. What that means is you're going to hear a lot of special exceptions, okay? And they're going to literally take up a lot of your time, okay? And a lot of the community's time. So I would pick a number that kind of makes sense. Now with grandfathering, I'm an old military guy and I'm a rural guy. And I'm an old lawyer and I'm a rural guy there, and I think that rules count. And I know that we came in about a year and a half ago to kind of check how many people were registered at that time as STRs. And at the time, with the prior planning director, he opened up the file for us. There were 10. Okay? Now we know we got a lot more than 10 STRs in the county. But we've got 10 people who followed the rule and registered, okay? And I think your ordinance is a couple years old. So, you know, that's abysmal. So I would say that somebody who hasn't followed the rules should not be grandfathered. And they should come and have to explain to either you all or the Board of Supervisors why they haven't registered. We may not be able to figure out whether they paid any transient occupancy tax, but if we have the number of transient occupancy taxes that are due that far exceeded the registered, we'd be okay, but I doubt that's the case. I think we're getting shorted on transient occupancy tax too, but that's going to be more difficult to prove. So my suggestion would be, pick a number, and my number would be 35 only because it matches Irvington's and is manageable. Once you get to 35, you can up it by 10 or 15 or whatever your discretion is, but then you can handle and manage the load. So that's really the gist of my remarks, and I do appreciate what you've done. The other thing about managing the load as it goes up, we're all going to learn a lot from this process, I think. And controlled learning is the best learning, rather than having to do it at the last minute and kind of choke on what you're doing. So just a few suggestions as we go forward with all this.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Steve Woodford.
Hi, I'm District 3 as well. I've never done this before, so
You're doing
forgive.
great.
Well, thank you. So forgive me if I stumble a little bit, but my issue is enforcement. I've read through the proposal. I really don't have that much to argue with. There were a couple good points brought up. But the thing about having a septic system being basically the control as to how many people you can have, up to 10, I get that. That sounds reasonable. Yet I happen to know right across the street from me is a house with 14 people that they advertise. The house is a LLC. They have put their mother-in-law in place there so that they can get around the rules with the other firms. And they have been doing enormous amounts of construction over the past 6 months or so. I mean, enormous, big trucks pulling in there all day and night. So they're upping that 14 to even more. Well, who's going to enforce it? How are we going to enforce it? It's my understanding, we don't have the resources to do anything like that. So to me, it sounds like this whole tax situation ties into something where we can actually pay for some sort of enforcement on this. But unless we enforcement, we got nothing. We got a whole bunch of people like the guy across the street from me, and that's what's going on in the county right now. Thank you.
No arguments from me. And I think we've tried to hash that out a little bit, but at least it gives us something that we can go back on. If you've got a 4-bedroom septic permit, that at least, if there's a complaint, well, we can go back to, basically, I get the way that I'm learning it now, and I'm with you on the enforcement thing, especially from a rural county standpoint, but at least there's something. There's something on the books that say, hey, you can't have that many people. You can have, I mean, the amount of beds doesn't matter, it's the amount of septic capacity, so at least it's something to enforce. So, am I correct in that?
Yes.
Thank you for your comment.
Can we afford, can we collect enough taxes to afford a couple more patrolmen for this sort of thing?
So, no, but if you're gonna speak, come up here. Come back up. So with this new ordinance being in our zoning ordinance, local law enforcement can enforce county ordinances. So your regular patrol deputy can write a speeding ticket can also enforce zoning ordinances. It doesn't have to be just at the county staff level. I'd like to say any of us could sit here and answer your question. Just know, I mean, it's new to everybody. It's going to be in the zoning ordinance. So I guess it's easy for me to say because I don't have a neighbor, but give us a chance. It's new to everybody. Let us work through it.
Let me address something, though. The person that's doing all the construction, correct me if I'm wrong now. If I add 4 bedrooms onto my house, I should have been up here and get the permit.
Yeah.
So the county staff should know what kind of construction is going on out that house. You just can't go out there and start building 5 or 6 bedrooms onto your house. I mean,
You'd be-
county staff.
You'd be surprised.
Well,
Or maybe not.
well, I will be surprised. I would be surprised because we have a good county staff here. So I would be surprised if they don't have a permit to do that. I would be surprised. And maybe you need to, after this meeting, write that address down and we'll find out tomorrow if they have a permit. Because I would be surprised if they got as much construction going on as you say is going on, that they haven't been up here and got a permit.
A tractor trailer pulling in
Well,
every single day.
Well, that's fine, but what we talking about, do they have a permit to do what they're doing?
Got it.
So.
William,
we
I'll
need-
give you the address.
Yeah.
Or
we
Mr.
need the
Lee,
address
I
before
guess.
go.
I'll give you the
We'll-
address.
We'll find out.
What we may not know, I mean, if they have permits on file, we may not know that they operate a short-term rental.
Yeah,
You know,
but yet still,
Yeah, I mean, we
If
can,
he's got a septic tank.
yeah, I mean, if he's adding more bedrooms, and he's probably gonna have to upgrade his septic system to handle
Yeah.
that. So, but yeah, all of it should be permitted. So if you give us the address, we can certainly check that.
And I'm not aware of any septic letter that I've ever seen in excess of 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean, so that's a cap right there. Now, town sewer, that's a different animal.
Well, I'm new to I've been here 3 years, and I've learned that a bedroom is not a bedroom in this county. If it doesn't have a closet, it's not a bedroom. So there's a whole lot of offices I've discovered at people's homes here in the county. So, there's a lot of ways around it, and everybody does it. It's not going to be possible to stop it. But what I'm getting at is you guys have come up with something looks pretty decent to me, but there's no teeth to it.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Well, I don't know how unless you're going to Well, I don't see a plan for enforcement, let's put it that way.
But that
And
doesn't have
you're
to be
right,
in-
I don't know that.
That doesn't
yet.
have to be in the ordinance. These are the rules, and then county staff, local law enforcement is your enforcement.
And that's how they get the strike. when you call
Correct,
them on it.
but you gotta know who they are first, and if we only have how many registered?
Well, that-
So it's more than
yeah,
No,
that-
there's,
that was-
there's more
yeah,
registered. She's
it's-
giving old numbers.
Yeah. it was-
Okay,
it's
15, 20?
More than that.
60?
Yep.
Yeah.
60-something now.
Yeah, you get my drift, and I'm sure that there's a lot of people who aren't registering, who aren't following the rules.
I'm sure.
Across the county. You know, minor stuff, no problem, but these guys have been doing bonfires, and they've been, you know, they're getting drunk and driving their truck in circles and stuff. I mean, shit you used to do in high school.
Well, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
When they driving the trucks and all that, have you called law enforcement?
Yeah.
And law enforcement has been out there?
Uh,
'Cause
they-
I spoke to the sheriff this evening.
They came the next day. They
And the
did.
Yeah, so. law
I went
enforcement-
over and put a stop to that. The fire department came the next day, and I don't know what they did something to the bonfire that they had going. But that's just my point, and it just so happens that I have a really good example right across the street from me, that's all. And I bet there are a bunch of these scattered around the county, not just that one. And the enforcement part, I'm not trying to say that you guys, I think you do a great job, but I'm just saying, this is a hell of a thing to, if you can't even find out who's paying the tax and who isn't paying the tax.
Well, neither can the state or federal. So, I mean,
You know, from the enforcement side, I will say that the Board of Supervisors is keenly aware of that, and there is an additional position in our, already budgeted for a zoning codes compliance officer that we will be advertising for in the next few weeks. So that's an additional staff person that, a big part of that person's job is going to be looking at these things.
Cool.
And I spoke to our sheriff, McCrane, personally, and asked him about enforcement. And he's going to instill in his officers, if they get called to that location you're talking about, if someone is called there, that it's gonna be documented. Because this three things don't mean anything if it's not documented anywhere. So if we gonna enforce and say three times, we gonna pull your permit, then we gotta have a paper trail, we gotta have something. And I talked to him
I
about
get
that
you.
this evening, and he said that's gonna be done.
I got you.
So, we working on the enforcement part, because there's no sense in changing ordinance and doing all that stuff if you're not gonna enforce it. So he's on
Yeah.
board, he's on board with that, he's gonna make sure all his officers is on board.
Cool. Well, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woodford. Wolford, sorry.
And if you got a pen, I'll give you that address right now.
And I also would like to say, going back to that, I mean, officers can't enforce anything until we get the zoning ordinance written,
Well-
because there's nothing they can stand on.
There's three things though,
Yeah.
he got something.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, no, I get that, but until we get this, until y'all approve it, the sheriff doesn't have anything to say to do. There's no
well,
zoning ordinance.
this
currently.
ordinance gives us more things.
It starts
to-
here with the
Yeah,
teeth. The
yeah.
teeth start here.
It's
basically.
it's more potential violations
Yes.
with this ordinance that an officer could, you know, could justify if he's called to the scene. So,
Okay. Thank you again for your input. Virginia, and I don't have my glasses on, I apologize. Ramadan?
That's correct. Hi, Virginia Ramadan from Whitestone. I don't know what the district is, whatever, number 352, I have no idea. One of-
It's not two.
Okay, Whitestone. I would like to apologize first for not being present when this first draft was being discussed in January or whenever it came through. I read about it in the Rappahannock Record a month ago that we were going to have this hearing. And I have a couple of questions, if I could ask the questions and then make some comments, to understand some of the reasoning behind the definitions. So, for example, I understand that there is a limit of 10 people first of all, you look to the number of approved, what the septic says in terms of the number of bathrooms, or bedrooms, excuse me, the number of bedrooms, and then you multiply that by, I guess, only 2,
Adults.
up to a limit of 10. How did you come up with that? What if you have a house, which we do, that has more than 5 bedrooms under an approved septic? So if right now I am at home with my family, I can have numerous people, particularly up to 12, and then children in addition. But after this, I don't understand the rationale for limiting it to the number that is less than the approved bedrooms according to the county health department.
It seemed like the majority of ordinances that we looked at had a cap of 10.
Then what's the rationale for the definition of 2 per bedroom?
Well, because if you only have 3 bedrooms, then you can only have 6 adults plus minor children.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand, and I think that I, for example, believe that any house that has the approved number of bedrooms should be able to benefit from your definition of 2 per room as well. And so that cap of 10 shouldn't apply if you have more than the approved number of bedrooms under the county health department.
Well, that's something that the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors can take up for discussion.
Okay, thank you. The second question that I have is on the limit over 20 people, regardless of the number of bedrooms on the property, unless you get a special use permit. Is that correct?
Yes.
So, for example, if I have a property that is a very large property and I have a wedding on it, how does that work? If I am allowing my property to be used for a wedding, what is I have to come within 30 days of, I don't understand. How would I go about getting that special use permit? Do I have to come every time that someone wants to do a wedding on my property? I would have to come before you to get approval, and I could not then approve, I could not rent my home for this wedding until I had a chance to meet with the county and get that approval?
Are you talking about a hosted situation or an unhosted?
Unhosted. It's our primary residence.
Well, it says right here, for unhosted short-term rentals, a different limit may be established as a condition of approval by special exception of the Board of Supervisors.
Correct.
If an adequate management plan for larger gatherings is presented with the special exception application. So what you would do when you come before the board for your special exception application is say, we typically rent this place for weddings. It could have up to 50 people, and then the board would take that under consideration. A special exception requires a public hearing. It requires adjacent property owner notifications. So your adjacent property owners would be able to come and speak as well. And the board would balance both sides and try to come up with a number that is, reasonable.
Okay, great. But, so would that occur every time there was a wedding? Let's say I come
For an unhosted, no.
Okay,
For hosted, yes, because hosted doesn't have to go to the board for that approval. It has to go to county staff
okay.
and present
All
it
right,
the
so
way
if I
it's
come
written.
forward with a good management plan,
You come with a good management
and
plan that
is
addresses.
good for the year then, or forever?
Yeah, I mean, it would be good until something screws up.
Right.
You know?
Right, but that can,
Yeah,
all
I
right.
mean, if you violate a condition of that special exception, the
Right.
board can revoke it just like they approved it.
Okay.
But, I mean, you would need a good management plan. You've got to have, parking figured out because
Right.
you can't trespass on adjacent properties. You
Right.
can't park on the side of, highways.
Right, we have large acreage.
Okay, so you've got to have parking figured out. You've got to have other things figured out as far as bathrooms,
Right,
whether
porta
it's-
potties
yes,
required, yes.
So you've got to have a management plan in place, and you present that. And, the board, as I said, would listen to both sides and try to come up with a good, reasonable solution.
Okay, that's good to hear, because if it was a requirement that you had to go per event, that would be one onerous on you and definitely onerous on me.
Now, the way I would see that, and I'm just picking a number, if you said 50 would be the max for your weddings, if you had one that said, it was 100 people coming, then that's an instance where you would have to come back to the board and say, we got approval for 50, but this one particular instance, we've got more than 50, and so we need to,
Okay, no.
So, you need to pick a number that you think you're comfortable with that would handle your larger gatherings, and that's what you need to address in your management plan.
Okay, and then the other, I hope, I did hear the other people speaking and their concern about short-term rentals being disruptive to their quality of life. I am sorry to hear that, but I hope that this, in the past when you had your meetings, that you also presented the side of what a short-term rental does to the community in terms of the number of institutions, both the retail places and that have been benefited by having short-term rentals. I think that we can see that there has been a growth in short-term rentals over the last 10 years, and we can see a commensurate increase in the amenities that are available in the Lancaster County community in terms of restaurants, in terms of people coming in. So there is a benefit. And I know from our experience, and when we use short-term rentals, that we really contribute to that community. And that's why I think that we don't want to limit the number of short-term rentals. If you are going to do restrictions, do them so that the neighborhoods are protected, but that the commercial side is not hindered. I don't want to live in this community if I'm finding that it is not expanding, it is not growing in terms of the amenities that are here, mainly because we have limited. Right now, in this community, you have a very expensive Tides Inn. A lot of people can't afford to come here. You have an expensive Hope and Glory. You have a couple of less expensive hotels around. But without the short-term rentals that exist in this community, I think the people who reside here would really be harmed. And so I just hope that you fashion this in a least restrictive way that protects the neighborhoods from misuse of residential property.
Both sides were presented, and you can go back and watch that January meeting.
Oh, great.
All of our meetings are on YouTube, and you'll find we had a packed house that night, and it was basically split down the middle. Half liked what was in the ordinance, and half, wanted it to be more strengthened.
Okay.
So, the county is, wants tourism, but we've got to protect our neighborhoods where these things are
Right.
located.
I do agree with that. And I think it varies by neighborhood. Some neighborhoods are out in the middle of, they don't bother their neighbors, or their neighbors have now, they all have short-term rentals, and so everyone's happy. So if you could go and review this issue of the bedrooms, and look at if there's really a rationale for restricting it to 10, I don't see it. I cannot see the rationale. It seems irrational to me.
Well, that's something that, as I said, the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors can look at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ramadan. I've got a J. Taylor, is it Hardin or Handon?
It's Hardin.
Hardin. Sorry about that. I get my glasses.
No, it's
I don't have my
okay.
glasses.
The J. Taylor is the part that gets me up from the seat. So again, I rise and thank you for the work that's been done on this draft and the progress that we're making together. J. Taylor Hardin, Whitestone, District 3.
Thank you.
I want to raise a question for the county. And I wanted to know, is it the intent of the county to drive up the number of STRs. And the reason I raised that question is because when I looked at this section 29-2, where the maximum number of rented nights shall not exceed 240 per calendar year, that's what I want to address. 2/3 of the year for owners who have short-term rentals. That means that could be attractive, could drive up the number, but it also means that owners without short-term rentals have possibly an expectation that maybe just 1/3 of the year, they may be without transients in the neighborhood, without all of the nuisances that we see being associated with those transients. And I thought that if it's not your intent to drive up the number of STRs or to present as being in favor of owners with STRs, that it would be appealing, it would be supportive of the owners with and without STRs if that number were more of an equal number, rather than 2/3 in favor of those with STRs and just 1/3 in favor of people who do not have STRs. Clear?
Again, that's an issue that the planning
We have gone
commission.
back and forth on that.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many times.
Is that right?
Certainly not scribed in stone.
No, and the original number was 180. It was half the year. And-
That's what I'm,
and,
So,
that's
No, go ahead.
what I would vote for.
so the commission did, again, let me piggyback off these gentlemen, went back and forth. And to answer your question, I'm not in any position to say, so I'll just give you my opinion. I'm not going to say that the county is for or against. I feel in our position, we have to be neutral for everybody. Take nothing away from any of the neighbors that have had problems. But ma'am, at the same time, you see the uniform that I wear when I'm not here at the county level. The nuisances that you speak of, are they in other localities? Sure. But I also listen to this radio nightly. And if there are, we don't know about them. So at the same time, listening, trying to work as the means to please everybody, the commission decided that 240 was a good number. I understand that people not for short-term rentals aren't going to like it. On the other side, people that come in here and explain how they've made money on a short-term rental and fixed up a home in our county. Multiple people spoke of that. Yeah, of course we're for that. But we're just, again, trying to come up with an ordinance that appeases everyone.
And to just make sure that you understand, the county didn't take a position that they want short-term rentals. That position hasn't been taken. We're just trying to craft an ordinance that's gonna be fair. And really that 240 number, when we listened to people back in January, you know, that was a number that kind of jumped the people that had short-term rentals. You know, they said, we did 210 last week, or last year, 230 last year. So that's how the 240 number. It's not that the county has taken the position that, hey, we want short-term rentals. Because that's not the position. It's just like Mr. Farrell was saying, you know, we in the middle on this. We're in the middle on this. And we not gonna come down on one side or the other saying, yeah, let's do everything in favor of the short-term rentals. Yeah, we're gonna do everything in favor of homeowners. I'm speaking for myself, you know, because, you know, you gotta look at the big picture. I mean, the lady that just spoke, you know, she brought a very good point. You know, we are trying desperately to attract people in this county. And this is one avenue, whether you believe it or not, this is an avenue. All you got to do is go in town on a weekend and look at the people that scrolling up and down the streets on a Saturday and Sunday. They are not local people. Now, I can guarantee you, I've been here all my life. They are not local people. They are people who are staying in short-term rentals into town and come out. And they're using the shops, they're shopping, they're sightseeing, and they're doing all those things. So there's two sides of it. There's two sides of it, and we gotta figure out a way to balance those two sides.
And while I appreciate the sharing of information. I think I'm very clear. When I look at the ordinance and I see 240, an objective reading of that would say, somebody got more days than somebody else. And that's just a fact. So however you want to spin that, that's fine. And I know that we're trying to grow the community, and I certainly want to be a part of that. That's why we have purchased a home here. What I have not chosen to do is to make it into a short-term rental. And I'm just coming here month after month, or, whenever these meetings occur, to ask that you not forget about those of us who are not short-term rentals. I believe the woman who spoke, I wish all of our short-term rentals were like hers, on huge tracts of land with ample parking and ample rooms and distance from the neighbors. That would be ideal. Have no problem with that. It is those that impinge upon the smaller neighborhoods that really create a number of problems for us. And before I end, just remind you, please consider the 240 in fact that if it's in stone at this point, I will say it's in stone.
It's not in stone
It's not
until
in
the
stone.
Board of
Okay.
Supervisors approves it whenever they hold a public hearing on it.
Well, good, then I will keep coming back talking about the 240. And with that, I'd like to punctuate my departure from the podium by saying I echo the comments made about enforcement. We have a number of quantitative measures in here that will need some kind of oversight. And it certainly can't be the honorary system, because we know that doesn't work. Beyond that, thank you again for your
Thank you.
attention, and I look forward to seeing you when we meet again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all we have signed up. Does anyone else in here have anything else they'd like to add before we close this section of the public hearing?
Sorry, I didn't sign up. You guys go online also?
I was gonna ask Glenn, I just didn't know if anyone in attendance first before I opened up online.
Yeah, I would, actually. I have a couple of questions if I can.
Sure.
Okay. It's Monique Warren, also District 3. We live, my husband and Joe, next door to the property that Steve was talking about. And, one thing, Bill, you mentioned you can't enforce if you don't know, if there's not a call that's made. A couple of points on that. Most neighbors don't want to call the cops on their neighbor, unless it's really something that is, imminent danger or what have you. So we don't generally call out our neighbors. We don't want to cause problems. They own property, we own property. Also, we don't know if they're violating a law necessarily. I can't find a public registry. I can't see if this short-term rental place that I know is operating, we see the comings and the goings. It's a huge house. It's been converted into more bedrooms than were ever there before, more bedrooms than they have septic for. But I can't go to the county website to see if they've registered. I don't know if they're paying taxes. So can we do something about that?
Yeah, we can add that to our website as far as the registry goes. As far
Can
as
I go back on that a little bit?
Yeah.
That's why we're here. Because
Okay.
it is the wild, wild west, for lack of a better term.
I'm just shocked that nobody's brought that up.
Well, that's what we're doing it here. I mean, we're a
Okay.
little behind, but we're doing it.
Yeah.
That's what we've been tasked to
Okay.
do. No one's required to do any of those things right now. And there's nothing on the books to say that they have to. And that's
Yeah.
why we're drafting the ordinance right now.
Because, I don't know that I could, if I call and say, hey, the neighbors next door, have 11 guests.
Right now, it wouldn't matter because it's not on the books.
Okay, but,
The only thing right now that would matter would be if they're registered or not. because that's the only thing
I
that.
would love to know if they're
Yeah, and
registered.
I mean, we've got a registry, but it's not on our website, but we can
It's not on
correct
our
that.
Okay, so I'd love to get that answer, you know, if that address
Yeah.
is registered. The other thing is, when people are making massive renovations or small renovations to their property, the inside and outside, I always thought you had to have a permit, you know, posted like at the end of the road so people could see that you have a permit. Is that not the case? I just don't know.
Well, you know, different types of improvements require permits and some don't. So if they are doing improvements that do require permits, then they should come up here, get a permit. We give them a placard and we suggest to them that they post it close to their mailbox so that people can see. So I don't know that if it's actually written anywhere that it's a requirement to post it, but we always tell people to post it close to their mailbox.
May I, as the neighbor and as a resident of the county, know whether they have a permit?
Yes, that's public knowledge. Once they get the permit, it is public knowledge.
Well, it can be made public knowledge.
Yes.
By my request.
Yes.
I would like to know that. So who
Yes.
do I call to find
Well,
out?
if it's the same address, we're gonna,
It's that
we're
address,
gonna, yeah, we're gonna check,
Somebody's in trouble.
okay?
we're gonna check on that.
But actually, building permits are online already.
Building permits are online,
Yeah.
yes.
But building permits are not required for everything,
That's-
right?
that's
It's-
correct.
I mean, these are substantially interior renovations.
I mean, if you're moving walls, adding wires, adding
Oh, yeah.
pipes, then you're gonna require a permit.
Okay.
But if you're just, you know, painting walls or replacing, you know, plaster with whatever, you know, or just replacing cabinets in a kitchen,
No, it's none
you
of
know,
that.
none of that would require a
Yeah,
permit.
okay. I mean, that may be going on too, but that's
Yeah.
not what we're seeing, so, okay. Thank you very much. I will close with one other thing, and I've written to both of you about this, and I don't know who else to talk to about this. But it's part of this problem that we've all talked about with septic. We live right on the water, right? This property is right on the water. It's literally part of a subdivision, a 4-lot subdivision. We have 2 lots, they have 2 lots.
Yeah.
Their front lot has the right, under the subdivision terms, to have a force main easement onto our front lot. And I'm very concerned that they're going to blow their septic, given all the people that they cram into that property. It's eventually going to be a problem for us. So we have, you know, time is of the essence for us. We want to get that subdivision dissolved. It doesn't need to be there. And with it, that easement.
You know, we talked about this several years ago. I think Attorney Leslie Kilduff was involved with that.
Yes.
And,
We paid a couple of $1,000s to try to get something done.
yeah,
about
and
that.
I think the issue at that time, don't hold me to that, couldn't get all of the lien holders from all the different properties.
I don't think that was attempted.
Okay, well, it was
I
my,
think with the approach, we attempted to, a different approach. Leslie had the idea
Yeah.
of doing it such that it would be without.
I know, but we've never done it that way.
Right.
And I think we had that discussion back then, or maybe, you know, the way we've always done it is to have all the owners agree to the dissolution of the subdivision.
Right.
And,
Including mortgage holders, right?
Mhm, yes, and that was,
Okay.
I believe, or at least it was my impression, that was the issue. We couldn't get all of the lien holders to agree to that.
Yeah, no, I don't think that, but anyway, you know,
Yeah.
recollections.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah, I'm aware of your concern, and the county attorney's looking at it too. So we've just never done it the other way
Yeah,
by state code. You know, we'll look at that some more.
okay. All right, thank you, and thanks for all your efforts. It's not an easy task.
Thanks for your comments. Glenn, how are we?
We had one individual that raised their hand, but now they've lowered.
Or maybe we address their concerns. If anyone's online, if they would like to state or say anything during the public hearing comment, please raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you.
All right. Paul Newman.
Paul Newman. Mr. Newman, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, sir.
Okay, again, if you could state your full name and the district, please.
Paul Newman, District 3 in Whitestone.
District 3 is a hot one. Yes, sir, Mr. Newman, thanks for joining us. The
Thank you
floor
for
is yours.
conducting this important matter, and I'll apologize for a repeat of points made in some of your other discussions. But my experience as immediate past president of a community association was the numerous examples of conditions that were both unsafe and unfair for the residents of our High Bank community. And I want to keep my comments brief because I'm certain you've heard much of this in your January meeting. But there were just numerous examples, unsafe examples of disregard of the variety of rules and regulations that were followed by the other homeowners of our community. Lots of examples such as climbing over security tape that was put over a condemned pier, disregard for parking conditions, blocking common roads that were owned by our community, unsafe because when we bring our young grandchildren to community pools, or to our own High Bank community pool, that is, we really don't know who else is there. There have been examples of large numbers of people that nobody in our community knew, and we felt unsafe at times for ourselves and certainly for our young children. Certainly unfair with examples of the nuisance of multiple vehicles, the nuisance of loud and late behavior, with disregard for lights and the what you have referred to as the safety and enjoyment of the homeowners, excessive trash, both in our own community centers and certainly for the Lancaster Refuge Centers. I again, am just repeating that this most certainly would lead to greater calls for enforcement. If you're expanding short-term rentals, which I'm opposed to, I'm trying to decide if, as a homeowner, does this encourage us then to generate this paper trail, which makes a greater statement, or does it make more sense at this time to, again, start slow? But we as homeowners would like to enjoy a safe environment with our families and with our children. And my fear is that the unsafe and unfair behaviors that we've experienced over the past several years is going in the wrong direction. I thank you for your attention to this matter, and thank you for taking my call.
Mr. Newman, thank you for your time. And Mr. Farrell has one question for you.
Hey, Mr. Newman, it's Bill Farrell. How are you?
Good evening.
Just a quick question. The residence that you're talking about, it's one particular home, correct?
There is certainly one home that has been the primary source of trouble. That is correct.
With multiple complaints with the homeowner, correct?
I could give you examples, yes.
With the homeowner, though, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So not a short-term rental, the homeowner? Yeah. Not applicable in this situation?
Okay.
No, well, I guess I need to clarify that. The behaviors that have been unsafe and unfair have been from the short-term renters themselves. These occurred through the short-term rental at one of our properties, but there have been numerous short-term rentals through this one property. And there have been several examples of both unsafe and unfair behavior. I'm not talking about the homeowner now, but I'm talking about those short-term renters that have, at varied times and over several times themselves, exercised a variety of behaviors that were both unsafe and unfair.
Does that answer your question?
Okay,
Mr.
sure, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Newman. Appreciate your time. Nobody else? Okay. We'll close this section of the public hearing. Very good comments from all sides. Appreciate everybody's effort and time to come up here. It's never an easy thing. What do you guys think?
I think we definitely need to put a number on it. I think it's hard to put a number on something you don't actually know yet.
Limit?
Yeah.
Does the board think anything of that? Or is it just too premature?
Way premature. The number gonna be,
Yeah.
that's not,
That's not what you're looking for from us anyway, if I'm,
No.
would that be a safe assumption?
yeah, that's right.
Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it would be a big mistake to put a limit on it. We have no idea, really, how many of these we have.
So you like it as we've got it now, just,
Open.
yeah,
I mean, we're not encouraging STRs, we're just dealing with the ones that exist. So it's not a matter of us encouraging. Anyway, I think a limit would be a big mistake.
and the board doesn't want it at this time.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Steve?
I've said from the beginning, I'm not a big fan of STR anyway. But having said that, you know, property owners should be able to do within reason what they want to do with their own properties. I've got them around me. I think that this board and the people who spoke tonight, a lot of concerns are the same concerns that I have. I understand what you're saying and what you're asking for. But I feel like this board, along with the people like yourselves who've come in and spoken, we put a lot of time and a lot of effort in here, and we need to move it on, get it to the board, get it approved. And the good thing about it is if something doesn't work, then we can always go back and try to adjust it and fix it down the road, because it's not going to be perfect. I mean, we've looked at a lot of jurisdictions, as you've seen. We've taken input from a lot of people. It's just something that's got to move forward. Put it on the books and let's start with it and then see how it goes. And if we have to adjust, then we adjust down the road. That's just my opinion.
Well put.
I think we've gotten some good suggestions here tonight, and I have pretty much decided what I think of them. I wonder if we should proceed on them, though, with only 4 members here and 3 absent. If you want to proceed, why, I'll give you my opinion on some of the things that have been proposed tonight. Or we can wait until the next meeting.
How much in a hurry y'all to see it?
We're not in a hurry. I can tell you that. Or we can discuss at this level, the better it's gonna be.
Or,
Because we know
yeah,
we
we
have
can
to
discuss
look at
them and
Yeah.
maybe not make a final decision if we don't want to.
You can table action on it
My
tonight.
question is, if we table it, then we have to bring it back as a discussion item next month.
Yeah, you can bring it back as a consideration item.
And then we have to come back to the public hearing section.
No.
No, you don't have to do another public hearing.
All right, well, we are 3 commission members short. And I think we should maybe table it till we
Well-
come back next month.
One of the things, Don, we do need to look at, and it's a valid point. If you got a large house that 5 bedrooms in it,
Yeah.
or 6 bedrooms in it, then we need to figure out, okay, why are we limiting that person to 10 bedrooms? So they've been approved for a septic system with 5 or 6 bedrooms, so
Well-
we do need to look at that.
I made that note.
I may put my foot in my mouth, but I've never seen one above 4 bedrooms, ever.
No,
That's as
seen-
high as, never
seen
seen,
what?
never seen the health department issue a
Oh, oh.
permit more than 4 bedrooms. Now, I'm certainly no expert on the matter, but I've never seen one in all my years in researching.
Well, we need to
And that's
find
the-
out, you know, what's.
Like when
what's
David Miles goes out and does the soil work and what have you, the best is a 4-bedroom. But again,
But I think you got a person here's got more than 4 bedrooms.
well, again, you can
That's what
say
they were
that they
saying.
got 3 bedrooms and 10 offices. I mean, that's how people get around it. But I mean, the thing we can always lean back on is what does the permit say?
Exactly.
We don't care how many bedrooms you've got in your house per se, it's just,
Yeah,
what does the permit say?
What is that VDH?
And I'm not aware of any greater than 4.
But I think our ordinance should be changed to allow that if the county has approved more than 4 bedrooms, why, that would be taken into account. I mean, that's,
And that's really what I'm saying.
That's
I-
right.
Yeah.
You haven't seen it, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it might exist.
Yeah.
And this
So-
property, we should have got her address, we should know where this property is at, so we can verify.
Maybe we want to just,
I think we have.
We got-
we'll update that during the
Well, I
agenda.
question you, Mr. Lee, couldn't that be something that the board does at the special exception level?
Well, we're not gonna do a special exception against the health department.
yeah.
We're not gonna do that.
No, I mean, it's a
That's
limit.
easy enough to verbiage to add to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a limit of 10 people. I mean, you could easily just take that limit out and just leave it as it's limited by the health department permit. You know?
And if they got to come to you, I think it's fair that we request the health department permit.
Oh, yeah, we
So we-
would, yeah, we would
Yeah,
have it, yeah.
so-
But we're not gonna override the health department.
No, so the county staff don't have to run around looking at it all the time.
Yeah.
That might be the house.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah,
you guys
just
want to,
write that out.
we'll add some of the consideration items. The members that weren't here can read the notes as far as what the public hearing was, and we'll table this till next month. You're not in any hurry, so that's okay with you? Sounds good. All right. So then that, we don't, if we're tabling,
I would suggest go ahead and hold the public hearing on the second one and table action on that one as well. That way you won't have to hold another public hearing on
all
either
right,
one.
that's what I was going to ask you, just for some insight on that one. So what Don is saying, the next public hearing that we're going to open up, just basically is a little clerical issue, whereas everything we put in this new ordinance has to funnel through the actual
Zoning
zoning
districts.
ordinance itself.
Yeah. Well,
So-
if the short-term rental ordinance is enacted, then you need to amend Article 1 definitions to include the short-term rental operator, short-term rental hosted, and short-term rental unhosted as in your packet. You also need to amend Article 4, the A2 district, to add under permitted uses, short-term rental hosted, and a second permitted use of short-term rental unhosted with a special exception. You would also need that same amendment in Article 5, the R1 district, Article 6A, the R4 district, Article 18, the waterfront residential overlay district, and in Article 7, the R3 district, you would add one more amendment to that, and that is deleting tourist home as a permitted use from that district because the short-term rental hosted and unhosted takes the place of that. So that would be the amendments needed in the various zoning districts to carry out the proposed Article 29. So if you choose to open a public hearing, that's what the public should speak to address.
Any questions on that?
Oh.
But going backwards, we're just going to make a motion to table the zoning ordinance changes before forwarding to the board and bring it back next month as a discussion.
Yeah, you close the public hearing, all
Yeah.
you're doing now is tabling action on it until
Yeah.
next month.
Okay. And now we're moving to the second public hearing, which Don was talking about, and that's just the update to the definition section of our zoning ordinance. Is everyone kind of clear with what Mr. Gill was just talking about?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea. We'll just go ahead. At this time, we'll open up the public hearing section as advertised regarding the change to the definition once and if the zoning ordinance regarding short-term rental is adopted. So, just like the last public hearing, if you got anything to say, please come up, state your name and zoning district.
Just like they say at Apple, one more thing. If you manage this at
You got that, Crystal?
an entry
Mr. Allen?
number of, say, 35, you are free to bump it to 45, 50, 65, 75, 80, 110. My advocacy for that is exactly the trepidation that you're having. When you move those numbers, you will know more than you know when you start this process. And I'm not advocating for a number, just a starting number.
Hold on, Mr. Allen, what are you addressing on this public hearing? This is for
the
the
definition
definitions,
changes.
that's been closed. This is if you have anything to address with the definitions that are proposed in each zoning district, that the information would change. That's what we're discussing right
This is how
now.
it filters through our zoning ordinance, how the typical
So
zoning would change.
that
if
part,
this
the
ordinance
chair
was
has
adopted.
closed.
Sure, but if you're just mechanically setting this in, okay, I don't know that there's any discussion that anybody can make, okay? I'm just making suggestions for you to manage the zoning ordinance, okay, which will be the enforcement ordinance for all of this, okay? And if you don't do that, the toothpaste is going to be out of the tube, and let me tell you, it's going to be real hard to put it back in, because these people will then have what we call under zoning law grandfathered rights. And you can't take them away unless you're doing an enforcement action under your zoning code. So you got to wait for them to screw up if they ever do. My point with Williamsburg, and you know, there are three arguments that we make. The one we plan to make, the one we make when we get up there, and the one that we think of when we sit down. So when I sat down, I realized I wasn't clear about Williamsburg. Williamsburg has and allows only hosted STRs. You cannot have an unhosted STR in Williamsburg. And they are plenty vibrant. They got people wandering the streets after COVID now like no tomorrow. Even the sandwich shop in Market Square has rehired new people, and they're serving by God sandwiches again. So what I'm telling you is economic viability is not tied to this issue, okay? Quality of life is. And they're two separate things. And again, I have no problem with Mrs. Ramadan. She's a pop castle, I believe. She has plenty of land. She's managed things in the past. She is probably a real enhancement to this community, but not everybody fits in that same pigeonhole. Okay? And it's a lesson that Williamsburg learned, and I think there are a lot of parallels to a place like Williamsburg, high retirement community, trying to attract young people into their workforce, okay, that you all have been doing. So this has got to be managed right. And I'm saying, if you take it at several steps at a time, it's a lot easier to manage it right, because you're going to learn as you go along. I don't have all the answers. If I did, I'd write them up and give them to you. But that's the only reason I'm coming back up here, is I think a measured approach helps. We did that in the military all the time, okay? You start at the bottom and you learn your way up. And once the toothpaste is out of the tube, you just can't put it back in.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any other comments regarding the section, definition section of the proposed changes? Anybody online, Lynn? Good. Okay. All right. We'll close this section of the public hearing. We'll get ready for the tabled ones. And next on our agenda,
You're going to table action on this just like you did the first, correct?
yes.
Yes. I just wanted you to state that.
I thought they kind of had to
It-
follow
it-
one
it
another.
does. I just wanted you
So
to
we'll
state it.
table action on this pending our discussion next month.
Yes.
That's suitable to the commission members? Fantastic. Okay, so we're revisiting update to the comprehensive plan, industrial, excuse me, introduction in chapter 1. Mr. Farrell?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, Mr. Commission members. As you know, we started the comprehensive plan update back in 2018. We tabled this prior to me. We actually took our first crack at it last month. I feel like I've addressed all the conditions that were placed that wanted to be addressed. And just, I'm here to answer any questions or update anything else you'd like.
Nice job on the rework. Thank you very much for your effort on that. Anybody have any questions or comments regarding the update?
I really only had one question, and that's on page 1.5. We took out all the demographic data and the racial mix of the county and the census statistics. Why did we do that?
Because it's addressed in every other chapter, so why just continue beating a dead horse? So I felt more comfortable, and, I mean, we addressed this last month and that wasn't brought up, so, you know, I didn't put any more effort into that because nobody addressed it. But this is all addressed in each other chapter, so,
So all these statistics are
yes, sir.
somewhere else?
Yes, sir.
Good reason.
Fine work.
That's all I had.
I mean, if you all are satisfied with the revisions that have been made, your next action would be to forward this to public hearing.
I don't see any reason, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think we've got it cleaned up pretty nicely, so. You want to make a recommendation, Dave, please?
Yeah, let's, so we need a public hearing on this?
Yeah, before you
So
send it to the
let's-
board.
Yes.
Let's put this forward to put the introduction in chapter 1 forward for a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chubb. We've got a motion on the floor to forward this updated chapter 1 to next month's planning commission meeting for a public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That would be May 18th
Thank you.
at 7 PM.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, guys. Do we have any announcements we want to make tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you would look at the second page of the comprehensive plan introduction in chapter 1, you'll see that where it says county staff principally responsible for updating the plan, where it says Director of Planning and Land Use, you'll see Olivia Hall's name there and not Mr. Farrell's name. And that's because Mr. Farrell is leaving us as of next Friday. He's going to be a full-time law enforcement officer with the town of Kilmarnock. So I'm sure you all will continue to see him there. So Olivia Hall, seated beside Bill, has been our Environmental Codes Compliance Officer now since last June. Prior to that, she worked for Henrico County for over 16 years with environmental background, and so Olivia has accepted the position, and so she will move over into Bill's seat, and she'll be our new Director of Planning and Land Use effective May 1st, not December.
May 1st.
May 1st. And we are currently advertising for replacement for Environmental Codes Compliance Officer, and once we get that position filled, we're going to be advertising for the Zoning Codes Compliance Officer position that I spoke of earlier. So we had a little luncheon today for Bill. Wish him well and thank him for his service over the past couple years. He started out as Zoning Codes Compliance Officer and moved up to Director of Planning and Land Use when their prior Director of Planning and Land Use left. And of course, this opportunity has come along. So wish him well and all the best, and looking forward to Olivia moving over into that seat.
Yes, on behalf of
Thank
the
you, sir.
Planning Commission, it's been a pleasure serving with you. Thank you for your time, your service, and all your hard work on, we've gotten through this zoning ordinance, which has been, I guess, your biggest right since we've been here, and of course, the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Well, you got towards the end of the solar, you didn't have to go through all of the solar that we had to go through. And Ms. Hall, welcome aboard. We're looking forward to working with you next month.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
For a long time.
For a long time to come.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, you're used to all this. You've been around bureaucrats a long time based on that, so that's good. But good luck with everything, and remember, if you're behind us and there's lights on, just remember, that we all were together one time.
That's right.
Anything else we need?
I don't have anything else.
You guys have anything else you want to add?
At your May meeting, you do have elections, so
That's that time of year.
yes, that's that time of year again, and so that'll come up next month at your May meeting.
Time is flying. All right, thank you everyone in attendance again. Thank you guys that showed up. Thank you as well. Crystal, Glenn, thank you guys. See you next month.